But that maybe we can save for later. But like that Kramnik post, like that image I sent, like that involves like online cheating. That could be a topic for another.
Yes, when he gets like 13%, while everybody else gets like 7%. Statistics were
He's like, I mean, Kramnik.
out of 100, everybody else gets like 2% cheaters, and he gets like 19% cheaters.
Oh, but
So 13%.
that's actually true. Like, I mean, I've played on the. It's probably not this. No, like I have like a wall. Like I played from February to March, a few games, and I got like a wall full of refunds on chess.com. That was actually
That's incredible.
yeah.
A wall full of refunds.
And it was not against the same person; it was different people. I was
Like
like,
you
what?
literally, you were scrolling through people just giving bad rating.
I was like, okay. Then all of a sudden you get like 70 rating points. So like, nice.
It's like, I don't suck.
That's so bizarre. I don't know. I get people. I mean, ironically, I don't play in the general public arenas as much, and I don't play people at random to my stream as much. So therefore, the people that do come in and have created new accounts, I would say it happens to me about once a week. Let's do that in our next topic. Let's talk about the Kramnik situation.
Well, I think
let's refresh that.
I think we're already.
Oh, we're going to do the transgender. We have to do the transgender, right?
Oh my God, you're making my life hard for me, John. You really are. It's like in the editing booth, I'm going to be like, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, on to our next topic of the day. We have FIDE'S new policy pending investigation or, review on transgender athletes. So the decision
not being allowed.
Yeah. So this is from The Guardian, which is a UK publication. The world's top federation has ruled that transgender women cannot compete in its official events for females until a review of the situation is made by officials. The decision by the Switzerland-based federation FIDE was published on Monday and has drawn criticism from advocacy groups and supporters of transgender rights. FIDE said its members federation increasingly have received recognition requests from players who identified as transgender, and that the participation of transgender women would depend on an analysis of individual cases, which sounds a great way to placate everyone, doesn't it? That process could take up to 2 years. That seems to be the crux of the issue. Basically, they're trying to come up with a new policy, and I don't blame them. They have to have a policy on these sort of things. Just like I can't play in an under 20 event while being 21. You have to have some lines, no matter where you draw them.
Well, the gender politics situation is what I think people are actually accusing FIDE of going against to a certain extent. And I mean, I have posted on this on Twitter for the most part, and I basically feel like the assault is actually on the sections themselves. If you're going to have a women's section or a girls section, now you're sort of taking it on yourself to actually determine who those are. For example, if you have let's just say in New York City, we have the gay pool league. And I know these guys are a great group of people, let's just say, because they're not all guys. And they have fun. They meet, they compete, they do all this stuff. And it really works well. And they're all inclusive. It's not like they're going to say, oh, you're not enough. Perhaps you're not enough for this, the other thing to be in the LGBTQ plus variety. But honestly, by banning trans women from women's FIDE events, they're taking a stand that is not or is no longer inclusive. And honestly, it's just taking a step toward open events, where I feel open events should have all of the prizes in them. You have an open event with top female, or you have, who was it that recently won? I think it was Tosh Queen. She is the new Irish women's champion. She played in an open event, and she was the top scoring female player. She didn't play in the Irish women's championship. She played in the Irish championship or Irish women, and she finished behind the other gentleman or whatever. she finished in second place in the tournament, but she's the Irish woman.
Right.
And that's to me how it all should be. You're going to learn faster if you play in an open event. You're going to be building greater camaraderie and community if you have one open, inclusive event. And you can limit it, of course, to the first X number of entries and stuff like that if you're worried about an event being too great. But honestly, if you have 10 or more players who identify as trans women, then you can have the trans women prize for that section, for that tournament.
I mean, that is a good idea to have a separate category if such a thing is necessary. And I will say any opinions I do have this are not based on hate. It's based on what I think is the best way of protecting both parties while maintaining a standard. Personally, I do think that that the crux of the issue is protecting the women's category from, it's protecting the women's category from whatever, I mean, chess to a certain level is a unisex sport without any problems with that. But once you get to a certain level, there becomes a disparity there seems to be a massive disparity of general skill on a numbers based level. For instance, once you get to 22 21 2200, I assume that's where the massive disparity between large amounts of skilled males and skilled females occur. And I do believe that because we have decided that women's sports in this arena of play is something to be protected, then we should go further into that and say that it should be that it should be protected from. I'm not being the best advocate for this. I'm not being the best advocate for my point here because I'm doing this horrible little habit of not having my points all thought up already. But
in order.
But I will say that if we're willing to have women's titles, and that's a different conversation. If we're willing to have women's categories to stop men dominating the women's categories and dominating them in prizes and placement and maybe even sponsorships of some kind, then I think we need to look at this from from a point of protecting the female category from opportunities being taken away simply because there's a much larger amount of high skilled men than there are high skilled women in the chess world. I do believe it's a protection issue more than a rights issue. I personally do not believe that I am have any right to play in a women's sport. And that's my simple opinion. If I competed against women and am an amateur arm wrestling, I'd rip their arms off, and that's a very sad thing to say. But until it's I mean, I'm sure there are women in this world who are stronger than me, and they definitely are. But with very little effort, I can be extremely good at a women's event. I mean, for instance, back in the day, I had a 200 kg deadlift. That was with minimal training and just part of rugby practice. If I was to change that, and if I was to go into a woman's sport, cut a little bit of weight, then I would be quite all right. And I do believe that, and I do believe in protecting the sanctity of women's sports by making a hard line somewhere in the sand that says, I'm sorry, if you've been part of this gender group here, you will not be eligible for prizes of this gender group here. I mean, it doesn't come from a place of hatred. It comes from a place of objective skill differences, and in chess, mainly by the vast amount of numbers of men who are very, very good.
I do agree with what you're saying, but first of all, I don't see I understand the FIDE rule, but because let's say someone just like randomly decides, oh, okay, there's this tournament on Friday, let's say, and then I'll claim that I'm a transgender and I'll play on that tournament, and I will steal some prize money potentially from that tournament. So that doesn't seem fair. But what I don't think it's fair is FIDE banning and not allowing transgender. I mean, if you are like recognized legally as female, I mean transgender, but as female, and it's you should be allowed to play on woman category
Mm. But,
because
but
it's
I
you're
agree that
then
legally
you
too.
you are a
I
but then
woman.
you
actually do
have a
agree to
horrible
that
little
too.
conundrum. Whereas FIDE covers most of the world's chess, the world doesn't agree universally on anything. I mean, I would hesitate to. I would say go to Azerbaijan and say that they're going to laugh in your face, and it's going to be a very, very sad. It's going to be a very, very sad experience. Now, I do believe. I mean, if I do believe in a third category, if you want, where and I do believe in a third category in most sports. That will not get in the way of anyone, and will have absolutely fair pairing. I mean, or as fair as you can get. A third category for transgender athletes, and then one for the males and one for the female. It sounds fair.
But that's yeah, that's fair. But I mean,
And
chess is
I'm
not a
actually
physical
slightly
sport.
against it.
Okay.
I'm actually somewhat against the further segregating of our sport between
Yeah,
sections,
I mean,
basically giving them their own little cliquish ways to play in separate little events. I'm always going to be for one open
mhm.
community that is inclusive and that does not try to limit the participation of others except for those categories where you do need to determine a champion, such as the under age 14 champion. You know what I mean? Or the under 21 world junior champion. Things like that.
May I bring up?
Obviously, there's an absolute set date for those
Yeah.
participants, but it's tricky enough. I'm just going to finish the with one story that I had over a decade ago. I think it was literally a friend of mine who's now one of the best female players in billiards. Caroline Powell is playing in the finals of the national championships, the Billiards Congress of America. I had gone to Vegas to watch many of the events, the pro events, and this is not necessarily a pro event, but it was one of the masters sections. I can't, the grandmasters sections might be the pros play. But literally, I came early, got a seat, sit by the table, wish her good luck, and then this fellow comes in a dress. Now, I don't know what his status was as of 10 years ago, but apparently he had played in the open men's division only a year or two before, had switched. Now, I don't have any way of verifying this, and that is where, as Rogan was asking for the hard line drawn in the sand, how do you verify and determine that these individuals are going to be qualified to play in such events? But literally, with physical skill, as Rogan may have mentioned, arm wrestling before, he outpowered her like you would not believe. Like it was not really a close race at all. How this opponent to Caroline Powell managed to win the championship. And I was just the more I watched, the more I saw the disparity between men's and women's competition happening right here in the women's championship. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. I want to be inclusive, but it does not seem the same because I wasn't even sure that the opponent had shaved that day. So there was a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing, right? Like, wait a minute, what's
I
going
mean,
on?
I won't deny. I will.
We're in the women's championship, and the winner has a 5
I
o'clock
will
shadow.
not. I will not deny it's a tricky situation. But for instance, for reference, what I want to say here, I'm from a relatively small country in New Zealand, and if we go down the women's FIDE rankings, we only need to get to number 8 before the rating is about 1642, and that would basically mean here that I'm not going to claim to have a 1600 FIDE rating, but I am going to claim that I am of the reasonable approximate strength that I could easily be in the top 10 of New Zealand's women without too much effort. And I have to say, well, without too much effort, without relative effort. So I would like, I'd like to,
Just by
yeah,
choosing.
would like, I would like to say that chess is a unisex sport, and I suppose, to a certain point, but then after a certain point, it really isn't. I mean, if we're going by the vast amount of players, so I think in order, if we're going to say yes, we love women's chess, yes, we love giving women's titles out because it encourages good play. Well, then then an open tournament is the last thing we want. Because I mean, if an open tournament has prizes for female, then it's not really an open tournament, is it? I mean, it's just two tournaments plunged into one with the same prizes that would have been there, had it been two tournaments.
But this is how things have been done since time immemorial. You have an open event, you have an open champion. The person that wins the open event gets, let's say, the U.S. Open. I know you had referenced it within reference to Magnus, even though Magnus would be playing in the Norwegian Open. But the U.S. Open, and like the earliest podcast when we were nervous and trying to figure out what to do with Magnus and open events. But literally, you have prizes for every 200 rating point gaps going all the way down at the U.S. Open. I remember one time I got a check from the U.S. Open for a reasonable amount of time. A reasonable point score, because I was the second highest ranked person in the 200 rating point group. So literally everybody is competing for some form of prize. And I did not think that there was a rating prize that I was going. But Jennifer Shahade won the U.S. Women's Championship in 2001 against a field of men: Alex Shabalov, Alexander Ivanov. She played all of the top men in the country, and she won the U.S. Women's Championship. It was an invitational 64-player event. They had the top 50 men, they had the top 14 women, and they had a 9-round Swiss. Jennifer Shahade stayed at the top of the wall chart for most of the event. She may have had a moment where she fell off the stage or whatever, but she literally dominated.
I would quickly say that I believe. I mean, it is hard. Would be harsh to say this, and I'm sorry that I have to. But I believe she'd probably be the exception that proves the rule, rather than the proof that the rule doesn't exist. I mean,
but we had other very strong females who were not too far behind her: Camilla Baginskaite and Elena Donaldson.
Oh, I know. But if you
they were in this same tournament, we were all mucking about together. And what I want to just emphasize is that an open tournament is a tournament that is open to all, and the encouragement that is provided toward players to enter this event would be that which is, there is something to play for, even if you're there just to play against the best possible opponent. So you're going to play against grandmasters, you might play against female players or transgender players, but we've also had tournaments
for women,
like the World Open is famous for.
Yeah.
My point. The World Open has had mixed doubles prizes, which encourages men and women to team up together. So their best score as a partner pair also earns other prizes. And many people have very, very well. This is a Continental Chess Association organized, promoted by Bill Goidsberg. But now throwing this into the mix, as you said before, someone who identifies as a trans woman now partners up with one of the other fellows. Now you've got a mixed doubles. There's certainly nothing more mixed than this, indeed. And we are going to be open and welcoming and inclusive. But at what point do you draw that line in the sand? Personally, there must be a way of certifying that this person has taken steps to say, But John,
I do have a small point to that.
And they can't go back next week and play in the men's.
I do have a but John, what we're talking about here is unfortunately people's feeling, and that is hard. I mean, it's hard, but it's very difficult to say. Yes, you sincerely believe this because you've done this. Like what I mean, there's plenty of transgender people, from my personal knowledge and from what I can glean about the issue, that have taken radically less steps than others. I think it's much easier, I think, to draw a concrete line in the sand that says, if you are biologically a male, then you must compete in the as a biological male. And if you're biologically female, well, you can go ahead and do what you want there. But different slightly, just based off all the points that I've made before.
But we have gender identification issues, though, Rogan, that are complicating the matter. I definitely know that there are many, many opinions on this, but my vote is that we have an all-inclusive. If someone is identifying as female or identifying as a woman, trans or not, gender identification, we should not exclude them. We should include them and see how it goes. Now, if people are going to be taking advantage of it, then we can make rules in the future about how this should be dealt. But we can't just say, no, nobody's going to play. No one's allowed to try anything. We're just going to think about it for 2 years, which could become 10 years.
I know. I do
years.
understand. I'm going to say something quickly before I let Chess Chopin let loose on his opinion. Like, I am quite sympathetic to FIDE'S plight. They are trying to balance things from everyone's point of view, and it's very, very tempting to kick the can down the road. My point that I was going to make, that I've almost forgotten in my mind so far, is that there needs to be a hard line. Otherwise, and I don't believe in this open strategy that John has said, simply because the moment you have a completely open tournament, it's already taking away potential prizes from the women's sport. I mean, if it's a completely open tournament and there's only one prize for the thing, then you're already taking away the prizes, the other prizes that would exist for female players in other female tournament, for instance. I mean, I don't think we can just say, well, we'll sit here and wait, because it's not like it's a situation that evolves gradually. And when you would say that maybe it's been abused a little much, or maybe it hasn't been abused enough, I don't know. Like, if the word abuse is a little bit harsh, but I have to say that I think there has to be a hard line. Otherwise, people will, I think there has to be a hard decision made on it. Otherwise, there won't be any reflecting point at all, because people will just say, well, it's happening. We can't really stop it. It's politically hard to stop it. We don't have, and there may be some entire issues that is completely crippling some parts of women's chess. But we've already kicked the can down the road. Let's kick it down there again. We can't do it. I do believe women's chess, for the sake of women's chess and the sake of women's prizes, you do need to make a stand on this, because it does get abused in other sports. We've seen this, and the more it becomes mainstream, and it's harsh, and I don't like hurting people's feelings on this subject. But I do believe that objective fact must be followed where opinions differ. So I do believe that if you're a biological male, you should not be allowed to rip people's arms off in female arm wrestling.
Well, that's a physical sport. I have to admit, that is a physical sport.
But it's also a skill difference, also, in the fact that it's not just physical strength. And in chess, at a certain point, there becomes a much, much vaster, and this is objective, a much vaster amount of males who have a higher skill level than females. There'll be for the amount of, there's 50 women how many women grandmasters are there, John?
10, about, more or less.
How many women's grandmasters are there at the moment?
About 10. I think it's about 10.
Okay, I've thought that it was a little more. I've heard somewhere that there's maybe 50, and they around about 50.
No.
Yeah, I think it's less than 100.
But the point is, that is probably less than 10% of the much less than 10% of the existing grandmaster population, and that's just the grandmaster population. That's not the IM, the FM, or the skilled, or the very, very skilled intermediates.
Let me just clarify that you were talking about women's grandmasters as opposed to women who hold the grandmaster title. I think David might have been referring to women who hold the
Well, I
grandmaster
was
title
referring to the
as
woman who
opposed
held the
to
grand. I was
WGMs.
referring to the people who held
Okay.
actual grandmaster titles,
Uh,
as in, I mean,
so you were
there's a
referring to the
10-to-1
original. Yeah, it
ratio.
might only be about 10 or
There's a
12.
10-to-1 ratio of people who do that, and I think it's I will humor someone. I will help them. I will respect them, and all their ventures, and all their ventures until the point it comes to hurting someone else's chances in something else. I try to have the utmost respect for everyone. And their personal choices. But the moment it deteriorates women's chess by allowing unfair competition, then I do believe that's a problem. That needs to be sorted on an objective level. That needs to be sorted with a clear line in the sand, and just like other sports do it. We can't.
There are 41. David is right. There are 41 female chess players who hold the highest title, Grandmaster,
41, but
not the
active?
women's Grandmaster.
They're all alive, I believe.
That is that are current anyway. I don't necessarily that are alive. I don't necessarily know how many that has a number that are,
I mean,
but that was the number I
I could.
spotted right away. It could be roughly 50.
I don't know.
This number
But
might have changed since its
there's a
report.
website called. Wait, one moment.
But I must say I'm very sorry if I've offended someone. I really do not like. I didn't particularly want to talk about this in such a light, but I do
Well,
believe
I'm
that
gonna
I
pull the
do
curtain.
believe my general opinion needs to be generally
Mhm.
spoken about, because it's not the most convenient one to take. It's a very, very hard one to take. I don't want to have to take it, but
But
but it's something that needs to be thought about.
although we haven't heard David's opinion, and our time is
Yes.
short,
Yeah.
I just want to mention that from the perspective of having had kids, we have to be allowed to make the mistakes, to be able to learn from, to be able to shape the rules and the
Mhm.
laws. Let's just take the United States, for example, as a country has made so many mistakes in all of these areas as far as discrimination and all of that. And over periods of time, we've had to form laws and refine the laws and define the laws in order to make civilization fair for everybody, even in this young of many countries. And we could have also said the same thing. No, we're just not going to have any of those types of people in our country. And that would solve the problem. Basically, I'm taking it from the standpoint of a parent that if we allow women to play with women, regardless of how they arrived at becoming women, whether it was biological or by trans, if we allow everyone as part of an open community, as a welcoming community, after all, we are one family, is supposed to be the FIDE model.
Mhm.
And families will have squabbles and families will have those moments, but we just don't say, no, you're not allowed to participate in family activities because we're not sure what to do with you. We'll get back to you in 2 years or never.
Yeah.
We are one
I mean,
family, and much of this has to be solved within the family environment of chess. And personally, I feel like we'll never actually know what the problems are, or the rules that have to be written or rewritten, unless we actually allow this play to take place. People are going to skin their knees on the playground. People are going to break toys because they play with them too roughly. And the same thing happens in the chess world. You're going to have to actually let it happen in order to know what type of mistakes you're going to have to overcome.
Two small points. I do believe you can learn from
David?
other people's mistakes also, and other ways. You can pre-learn mistakes from like other places and learn what they do and why they do it. And I also do believe in a family you can say, Billy, stop beating the shit out of Sally, please. I mean, it's not as.
That doesn't mean it's not going to happen anyway. You can say it as much
Yeah,
as
I
you
know,
want.
but it is something that should be allowed in a family per se, to like maybe don't beat the shit out of your sister. Maybe there's some hard lines that need to be drawn here.
Usually what I do is I teach the sister how to beat up Billy when he's not
Yeah,
looking.
but then
I
but then
remember
Billy
we
gets
had
a whole
one in
lot
the
bigger, and
family
it's
like
all very sad. So I mean, it's
Yes, you might, but you just have to know where the crown jewels
okay.
are hidden.
Right. Oh yeah.
There's one weakness in the armor,
Right.
and it has to be taken advantage
Yeah.
of.
Okay.
I remember when we had someone in the family, my lovely niece Rachel used to give my daughters and others a hard time in the family. And basically, I sent my daughters to martial arts classes. And the next summer beach vacation, I remember this exclam coming from the upstairs part of the beach house that we were staying in. And my lovely niece Rachel comes running down. Uncle John, your daughter just hit me. I said, good. It's about time and I'll miss her dearly. But that was one of those classic moments where you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to provide an environment for people to be able to, on average. If you don't provide the environment for people to actually know what they're going to be standing up for, it creates a different problem in its entirety. Meanwhile, I
Uh,
will continue to advocate for open events, inclusivity. David?
yeah, I do agree that the open events should be prioritized, but also like the fact that there's not as many like higher rated women, it's because there's also not enough there's a huge disparity in numbers of men playing and women playing chess. It's a very small number, so it's also like there has been cases of male pretending to be women and abusing this, like trying to play on women tournaments. It happened in April in a Kenyan player who pretended to be a woman that played some tournaments, and he got a 3-year ban. So I mean, also like the fact that women play a lot against each other, like it's like a close system. Like the rating is not going to be as accurate as open section ratings. So it's, I mean, I think there has to be like a line drawn, and if someone is legally considered a female or male, also could be also like it's not it happens both ways. If they are legally from a specific gender, they should be able to be playing on that category. So I mean, I don't know.
Right? You can't exclude them
I mean,
based on religious beliefs or
hmm?
anything like that. If someone is legally declared and has gone to great lengths to be not just identified as a woman, perhaps surgically transformed as trans women are recognized for
Yeah,
having done. That's the whole purpose of the trans title. And I've known and I've met and been friends with many women who have done this both in the billiards community and in the chess community. I think that if you are going to do it, it should be something that you can't just change your mind tomorrow and say, "Oh, I'm done with
mhm,
that." Like my stint as a vegetarian, I was a vegetarian for a couple of really great years when I had great vegetarian restaurants around me. But then I moved back to New York City, and even though there were great vegetarian restaurants, they were a little bit farther apart. So I ended up falling off the wagon a little bit. It was a lot of hard work to vegetarian back in the early 2000s. Now it's not hard, but I'm just saying in the 1990s, forget about it. So therefore, we are going to promote a better environment, higher ratings, faster learning by letting the players play against other players in open events, maybe providing those same prizes for them. So basically, the Bill Goidsberg system of providing prizes, there's no absence of prizes in the open event. In fact, there's greater numbers of prizes because you have 500 people in the event, and 30 or so constitute, let's just say, a specific area of expertise or whatever, and basically you can offer prizes for every 200 rating points like that, provided there are 30 rated players within the categories. You can offer female prizes of a substantial nature because they're paying substantial entry fees in order to be a part of the open experience, and
and also I think like,
they're also going to be able to play for the prizes in the
mhm,
open in the top as well as the under. They're
but
called under X prizes.
I think that will help a lot with ratings because there's like small communities and like in small countries with a very limited pool of players, where women will have like those closed sections and they will only play against each other. Like the ratings will basically stay the same; they won't change much. So I think it's a nice addition to the.
Yeah, the idea of giving the women more experience.
Sorry, it wasn't taking my microphone feed at all, which is kind of suspicious. That. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Meanwhile, I just want to say thank you, David, for your
Yeah,
input.
amen.
That was very
It was
insightful.
quite insightful, but I do have a quick small point to the end of that. I don't think you can say, well, if you're legally this. I mean, you can obviously discriminate on some things. For instance, I mean, I can't go into an under 20 tournament. I'm 21. I'm a few months off. They can say, no, sir.
Well, you don't have a legal birth certificate to say that you're under 20.
Yeah, but that's
But,
just kicking it down the road. If you say okay, well we'll go by the legal definition. They're legally included, so we must legally, FIDE must legally do this. Well then
But that's why
you're
I'm
not gonna.
saying-
The whole of the Middle East is
That's
gonna
why I'm
hate
saying
you.
that ages are
I mean,
exempt.
The whole of the Middle East is gonna say no,
Ages are
thank you.
exempt to a great
Some
extent.
of those European countries are gonna be like, nah, thanks. Some will, like Germany. Germany will say yes. I mean, but if you
Well, each state and federation are going to make their own regulations, regardless of what FIDE does. Germany, for example, I think it was it Germany, Chopin?
Just a
believe so,
weird
yeah.
argument, though.
They
Germany-
said we're just going to ignore what FIDE says, and women trans women are welcome to our events.
It's just I think it's somewhat of
And that's
I think
the way
it's just
it should
somewhat of a
be.
weird argument. I mean, it's it's not in my backyard, but but it may be in someone else's sort of deal. I mean, I'm,
But I'm going to
yeah,
wrap
that
up
is a
as I
a
must
good
go.
thing. Okay, we can do some more another time.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
We'll to be continued.
Maybe
to be
who
continued
knows?
to be
Depends how much I
obviously.
dislike
Maybe
this.
with more information and more input for
Okay.
everyone.
Maybe.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.